Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 234, recorded on Tuesday, February 15th, 2011. I prefer the Zune. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Bring people across the country or around the world together with a web conferencing tool that's the best of the best. GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, go to gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. And by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to publish a high-quality website or blog. For a free 14-day trial, go to squarespace.com/MacBreak. And by Audible.com. To download a free Audible book of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to MacBreak Weekly. This is Alex sitting in for Leo, who is somewhere near Antarctica. He's not near Antarctica. He's in Peru. He's going to Peru soon. He's in the water. Doesn't have a very good connection. He's not in the water by himself, by the way. He's actually, in a boat with a bunch of other people. Hopefully it's still working. And we're going to get Leo back in a timely fashion. But anyway, so I'll be hosting today. Also with me here is Ron Brinkmann. Hey, Ron.
How you doing?
Ron is actually in the studio.
I am. The TWiT cottage.
Yeah, it's good to have you up here.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, Ron, by the way, has hosted with me on This Week in Photography for a long time, and used to work for
the mothership. A certain company that we'll be talking about today. I was just down in Cupertino yesterday catching up with some buds.
So welcome here. And then we also have Ryan Block coming in from San Francisco. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. So anyway, we've got a lot of good news coming up here. We have Apple unveiling the subscription service. So we heard this was going to happen. That we're going to get some kind of subscription service. We didn't know exactly what it was going to look like or when, but Apple has finally rolled it out. Now, here are the caveats: is you can do a subscription service, but you need to, if you're going to subscribe from the App Store, Apple's going to get its 30%. If you bring a subscriber in from outside, you get to keep 100%, but you have to give the users a choice. Ryan, what do you think of that proposal by Apple?
Well, so my friends in the publishing industry have told me that they kind of had two major issues with the whole thing. One was this whole, before all these details were announced, their issues were they didn't get to keep any of the subscriber info. So they didn't really know who was subscribing. And as you might assume in the publishing industry, that's really important information. That's how they sell ads, much more so than we do online. So they really wanted that information. It looks like they're going to get it. They have an optional subscriber information data package, I guess, that they can bundle into the subscription. So you can find out a little bit of demographic data of who's subscribing. And then the other issue was the split and what happens to existing subscribers. But what's not clear to me, I guess, is if you're a magazine company or you're a publishing company and you want to transition subscribers over and still maintain that 100% share of the profits of your publication, what is the mechanism for doing that? It's not really explained.
Yeah, and I think it might be coming clear. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, it's not explained, but they were pretty clear in saying that if subscribers were brought in, not through Apple, but from some outside source, that Apple would not be taking that 30% cut. So obviously they acknowledge that it's only the people that come to there through some Apple mechanism to do it. So clearly they are planning on offering that somehow. And I can understand Apple's point to an extent. And I think they're just trying to unify this across all of their different offerings, that if people come in through Apple, they get a cut of it, but it's not this. I mean, there was a lot of talk about this being some unilateral, the boom has dropped and you have to buy everything through the Apple Store, and that doesn't seem to be the case, at least.
Yeah, well, the argument, according to Mr. Jobs, he said, our philosophy is simple. When Apple brings a new subscriber to the app, Apple earns 30% share. When a publisher brings an existing or new subscriber to the app, the publisher keeps 100% and Apple earns nothing. All we require is that if a publisher is making a subscription offer outside of the app, the same or better offer is made inside the app, so the customers can easily subscribe with a one-click right in the app. Now, the thing is I think that Apple kind of knows this is their briar patch. It is a lot easier to order on.
Absolutely.
I mean, the drug of the iTunes store and the App Store and everything else is that if I could order, Campbell's soup on the App Store, I probably would. And so because I just don't want to deal with it. They have my credit card information. I don't have to put it in. Is this telling basically?
This is no different than what Amazon does with their MP3 store, what Apple does to Amazon with their MP3 store, right? You can purchase songs from Apple, or you can go to Amazon and you can buy songs there, and then they get, you bring them into iTunes and you can listen to them there. But you're right, almost everybody just says, I mean, I personally go to Amazon just because I'm feeling rebellious. But in terms of the ease of use, you can't deny that the one click through the Apple Store is the easier way to do it. And they know that. They're smart.
Ryan, do you think that these companies can that are doing the subscriptions can compete with the Apple Store?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's really the competition kind of factors into it. I mean, I think that a lot of publishers want to be on the tablet form factors that are becoming very quickly so popular. And when the iPad was first launched, actually, the very first thing that I said about my biggest criticism of the iPad was that there was no magazine or publishing subscription model. And that's obviously not that big of a criticism when you think about it, because it was a brand new product. But from day one, I saw a lot of potential in the form factor for this kind of media, and I'm hoping that publishers are going to glom onto it really quickly, because all of their other efforts between micropayments online and free services online and by current mobile devices just have not been very good for revenue. Well,
isn't part of the problem is that it's a pain in the neck to try to sign up? I mean, that's the thing that's kept me from signing up for a lot of these, and that's the thing that the App Store. I think that it seems to me that the concern that they have is that it's going to be so easy to sign up on the App Store that or from in app, download the demo, sign up for it, or do it, that no one would ever go to. Go to their actual site and sign up. They're going to lose, a lot of money. I mean, we're not talking about little dimes here. If a million people subscribe, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars that are going into Apple's pocket instead of theirs.
Well, I think that instead of is not necessarily a fair statement, though, because like we've seen with the App Store on OS X, there's this potentially order of magnitude greater number of people that suddenly start buying certain things because it is accessible. And that's really the trade-off that I think Apple is offering, and that most publishers need to recognize, is that very little revenue, even if you're getting 100% of it, is not as good as a lot of revenue where you're only getting 70% of it. So,
well, the other thing to remember is that the cost structure is radically different. And for publishers who print paper publications, which many still do, obviously that number is decreasing almost by the day. But for those that do, printing on paper and then shipping that paper out either via mail or to newsstands is by far the largest expense of the publication, and always has been. In some cases, even more so than actually staffing the publication. So, a lot of publications that 50% of their cost structure is dedicated to printing a paper magazine or a news weekly. Even with that 30% that Apple might be taking for new subscribers, I think that it's actually going to work out very much so in their favor. I think part of the problem is they need to make that transition, and that's not going to be instant. And obviously, as many iPads as there are out there right now, even just in year one, we're still not at the level of penetration as a mailbox and a subscriber card for a Time magazine.
Yeah, and I mean, if anybody's going to save the print industry, and I'm not sure it can be saved, but this is what it takes. It takes a big company that makes it very easy to get to the content, because you just can't do it onesie twosie. You can't have every website trying to put something out there. So
and one of the issues has been is that everybody is doing it differently. So everybody's got their own little system and their own little way of working, and this is going to be it, and then we're going to give you these points, and you're going to sign up on our webpage, and then you download it. And the thing is by unifying all of that, it just changes that whole model really quickly.
And the subscription model is the key to it. I worked at Amazon for a while too, and I was peripherally involved with them trying to figure out. I was in meetings, trying to figure out because Amazon sells magazines, even though most people don't realize it. But you can buy subscriptions on there, and it's a huge win because once you subscribe to something, you tend to renew. People tend to renew, and so it's a nice, predictable revenue stream if you can get it. But it was just so hard to kind of unify that, and at least here's an opportunity to do it in the digital realm.
Now now that Apple's got a recurring model, so there's not they built this all out. They have a whole way of managing it for subscriptions. Do we think that there's any possibility that this subscription model might be extended to something like music?
I think that the differences in the publishing industry and the music industry are especially within the cost structure, might make that a lot more difficult to do. When you look at how subscription music works and how the economics trickle down to the record company and the artists, when you're paying per stream versus when
which is mostly mostly a flow to the record company and then a trickle to the artist, right?
Yeah, in most cases. It's just the numbers are completely different. There's actually a really interesting graphic out there that shows how many CDs, if you were to purchase 1,000 CDs at a retail store, how much of that slice goes to the artist versus if you stream it on RDO and Rhapsody and Napster and if you bought it on iTunes, you bought it on Amazon, and in cases for things like Spotify or RDO, you literally have to stream an album millions and millions of times per month to even come close to just selling 1,000 physical CDs. So I think the cost structure is totally different. It's not going to be, oh yeah, the publishers did it, so now the music industry is going to do it.
Well, but the reality though is that Apple and Amazon are pretty much the last holdouts, right, for non-subscription services. So while they're doing that, there's not that much left. There's not many companies left that are doing it. It seems like that's the idea of buying our content a la carte seems to be slowly fading into the distance.
Well, I don't know the numbers. Maybe Ryan does about in terms of money though. Are these subscription services really even
Well, I don't know if they're making money, but there's not much left. I mean, the thing is the reality is, you look at Netflix. I mean, as soon as I had Netflix running on my Apple TV 2, I accidentally got into the iTunes store, and suddenly everything was like $4.99 a piece. I was like, what happened to Netflix? And then I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong section. And I moved back in. I moved back into my happy space. The thing is, once you're used to that, it just doesn't seem like you want to go back.
But you don't consume music in quite the same way. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It feels like you're going to read a magazine, or you're going to read a book, or you're going to watch a movie. But music is this sort of ambient experience that.
Well, I mean, for me, I guess I know that I don't know how. I mean, I have a Zune that I actually listen to most of my music on. A Zune. I have a Zune.
Really?
I have a Zune that I watch most. That's probably where I listen to 80% of my music. I'm
going to call you an outlier right now. Then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because it's just a good solid device that plays a subscription service. So anything I'm interested in that I want to experiment with. I mean, I still think that a Zune is a better music lover's device than the iPhone or the iPod, because it's something that my brother tells me, oh, this is a really great album, and I just go up and check it out. And I download the whole album and I listen to it, and I don't have to commit to anything. I don't have to do anything. I can just kind of move along. And it seems like that is, to me, if I want one single song here and there, if I Shazam something and I want to, I want that song, I'll download it on my iPhone. But it's become more and more rare.
Well, and that's exactly why the music subscription service industry is so different from magazines and publishing. When you subscribe to a magazine, you're subscribing to a single title that's going to come regularly, and that's it. It's not an all-you-can-eat model. You don't subscribe to Condé Nast and get Condé Nast Traveler and Wired and all of the other publications. You subscribe to one publication. So if there was an equivalent, it would be like I'm subscribing to
Peter Gabriel.
Whatever. Radiohead.
By the way, I would subscribe.
Radiohead has to release an album every month. right? So it's very, very different. It's not all you can eat, and you know they're similar almost only in name. I mean, it's almost not fair to say like, you know, music subscriptions, because I think the use of the word subscription, although to us it makes sense, we're familiar with the concept. I think for most, you know, mainstream consumers, it could be a little bit confusing because you don't really subscribe to music. I think people are used to getting it one album at a time. Well,
and I think that the one place where I think subscription might not work as well is, for instance, movies, because a lot of movies I only watch once.
Right.
You know, like I don't, you know, with, you know, a subscription, I've got something recurring and everything else. Now, it works for me with Netflix. I don't know if it works for the industry, because with Netflix, it's this great open-ended, you know, I can watch these movies and everything else, but I tend to only watch them once.
It really is a continuum, though. There's everything from the I want to see one thing once and I'm done with it, to I want a radio station, which is somebody else curating stuff and just serving up whichever songs they want to send to me. And I think there's everything in between where, you know, you've got at the far end is the radio station, which is completely random based on somebody else's choices. And then there's that intermediate online sort of thing you've got now with the you can sort of choose a genre or a type of song and it sort of stuff equivalent.
Now, do we think that there is going to be, as the iPad subscription service really takes off, do we think we're going to see, or obviously going to see a lot of these publishers moving there, but do you think we're going to see more things like the Daily? Ryan, do you think we'll see more things like the Daily where it's built for the iPad? It's not even built for print. Like there's nothing there. They're just building into that subscription model.
Yeah, I mean, the Daily wasn't the only one. Virgin, or Richard Branson, had his, I can't remember what it's called, Project. Mm-hmm. They don't have, I think, a revenue model just yet. I think they're solely on advertising right now. But yeah, I think as the you know, as tablets as a product category become much more prolific, and it seems, you know, pretty well assured at this point that they will, and as there becomes, you know, better subscription publishing frameworks on other platforms like Android, we're going to see both, you know, traditional publishers moving over and pushing their businesses in that direction. But I also think that we're going to see a lot of, you know, publishing start to happen native to the format, which is exactly what we saw happen with the web. We saw a lot of old school publishers move onto the web very slowly, but then we saw a lot of new publishers taking advantage of the opportunity and doing things that were native to the format. And I think that's actually where the real innovation happens.
What do you think changes when we move to native publications?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, to start, and this is something obviously I experienced back in the day with Engadget, which is, you know, we saw it as a publication that was native to the web, and we didn't have to worry about any legacy stuff. You know, it frees you to create something that isn't necessarily within the constraints of a traditional format. And so I think the Daily is actually doing that to a certain extent, even though I think that they are kind of using a lot of the, you know, kind of the old school tropes of you know, News Corp publishing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really not thinking in about things in terms of, I'm going to take this newspaper format and adapt it to an application, and, you know, this kind of whole 2-axis pivot thing that you're seeing a lot of these newspaper apps do.
Does it make? But go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and just, you know, treating it as something that is really native to the tablet as a form factor.
Does it make sense for a lot of these traditional companies to think about other, like Murdoch has, think about creating a whole new thing that's not the New York Times or not the Popular Mechanics, possibly utilizing some of the resources there, but building something that looks completely different. You know, that is you know, that you know, utilizes their infrastructure, but not necessarily just republishing what they've already done, and then protecting both those formats. Ron, does that make sense to you? Or
yeah, I don't think we've seen it yet. I don't think we've seen. Even the Daily is still it feels very traditional. I mean, I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking at it, but it feels like there's so much more you can do with integrated content and integrated video and all that kind of stuff. And it's not even close to being there where you're giving me an experience. I think that's a problem. They're still trying to replicate a magazine.
Well, there's no publishing tool. I mean, this is the thing that I think Apple is really missing the boat on right now, is that there is no good way to publish for for the iPad.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, that you know, we at some point, doesn't it seem like iDVD and Final Cut and all this sort of, they need to change, especially iDVD, to be something that is a content publishing tool. And you can totally see some nice graphics and something where it feels different than your average blog or even your average, website sort of thing.
Someone asked me what my biggest request is for Final Cut Pro Studio, the new one that's supposed to be kick ass, according to Steve Jobs, was all I said is I just want to be able to publish to the iPad.
Yeah.
Like, I just want all those tools to help me publish to an iPad. And if that's all they did with the new version, I'd be happy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we'll anyway, we'll see how that turns out. We've got new news, rumors about a 4-inch iPhone coming out. But before we get to that, I just want to thank one of our sponsors. This show, MacBreak, is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Now, GoToMeeting is, of course, the best way for you to be able to interact with people, whether you're selling something, whether you're teaching. This is something that we use a lot. In the Pixel Corps, we just had a big class that we did over the weekend, and we had people from all over the world. And there's only one way to get that all done is to use technologies like GoToMeeting. And so the thing is that instead of having to be able to and trying to get everybody in the same room, which is almost impossible. We're global production, we're global education. We're all these things are something that happens all over the world. So it's not even a matter of convenience. It's just a matter of necessity. And conference calls aren't enough. I mean, that's the bottom line. Is the conference calls? You sit there. You really want to see the screen. You want to be able to present what you want to show your clients or your students or your colleagues. And GoToMeeting is just perfect for collaborative sessions, product reviews, sales presentations, training sessions, just about any kind of meeting that you want to have where you really need it to go a little bit further than a conference call. You need to make it easy. Now, the great thing about this is no one has to use a conference call. You have voice over IP. You can answer people's questions. You can open up the mic for them. You can go back and forth and have complete control over that meeting. And all of that's included in a very low subscription price. It's just a really, really great service. And as I said, it's really easy for me to talk about this because the Pixel Corps uses it. I know TWiT uses it a lot, and the Pixel Corps uses it every week, multiple times. And we run our business on it. So it's just such a great product. So definitely check it out. You can have, it's all one low flat rate. It's one low fat rate. No, flat rate. It's going to handle your phone and voice over IP conferencing. It's included for free. Just visit gotomeeting.com/MacBreak and sign up. You can get 30-day free trial. So you can just go up there, sign up, give it a shot, call some friends, call your colleagues, have a couple meetings, and it only took us about twice before we were like, okay, we're done. And we subscribed, and we keep on taking our service and ratcheting it up. I don't know how much we're paying now. We started with one low flat rate, and then we go, we need more people. We need more people. And so it's really, really, really great. So once again, gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. Definitely sign up for 30 days and just give it a shot. So we've got we've got the rumors coming out, and the rumor mill has begun.
New toys.
New toys. It's the spring. It's time to start thinking about these things. So there's a pair of reports coming out, and this is according to Apple Insider from the Far East, saying that Apple is looking to have a next generation iPhone and have it down to 4 inches, but also adding the possibly the A5 chip processor, and do we think this is going to happen, Ron?
It wouldn't surprise me. They've sort of hit their market. They've got an awesome product in that niche, but why not try to get something into the lower cost market? And the cost of these phones, so much of it is in that screen, in that display. And I don't think the user experience would be terribly compromised by going to something smaller. It would be a little bit of, you think about it, a lot of the stuff you do, you don't need it. It wouldn't be as great as a gaming platform, but for people that just want a low cost phone that still has connectivity and internet and all that sort of thing, I can totally see it happening. And why wouldn't they do something like that, as long as they don't sort of flood the market? I mean, Apple's got room for growth and differentiating sort of a different product line niches.
Well, I mean, this is not without precedent.
Right.
Apple starts with they come in high with a pretty complex product, and then they take out a lot of the oxygen by releasing other products that are a lot less expensive. Mm-hmm. Ryan, do you think that this is a viable rumor? Do you think that we're going to see a smaller iPhone?
I think it depends on how you define smaller. I think some of the stuff is maybe a little dubious. I think the ideas of a phone that gets rid of the home button, a phone that has half the screen size. I mean, I think that there are aspects of this that just really don't quite add up. There are a lot of ways that Apple can create phones that, you know, reduce component costs and really get it down there. And I think sooner or later they're going to have to. I mean, there's just no question about the fact, even though they more or less completely own the high-end phone market, they have to have something that will compete with those increasingly lower-end Android devices that are just so inexpensive and are actually pretty decent a lot of the time.
Now, do you think that this is going to be included also with Apple possibly allowing, going out to more and more different providers? So right now we have it on AT&T. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Verizon. It's now available on Verizon as of last week. But do we think that you make a smaller phone and you make it available on Sprint, T-Mobile, all the other things,
and
does
worldwide?
That kind of start to, and worldwide, does that start to basically blunt some of your competition?
Yeah, you've got to do it. I mean, if they want to expand worldwide, in developing nations, there's not a whole lot of iPhone penetration yet, and they may actually have a chance to get into some of those things. And I mean, Alex, you've been in these third world countries where everybody's still got a cell phone. And
everybody, I mean, a lot of people don't have computers.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Computers are really the high-end thing that people have, and usually they're PCs that have been, put together with a variety of different parts. But everybody has a cell phone.
I had dinner with a friend last night who just got back from hiking up to Mount Everest Base Camp, and he was talking about the porters, and they're carrying these huge loads on their head, but they've also got a little mobile phone, and there's cell phone coverage all the way up to Everest Base Camp now. But those are not going to be iPhones yet. You can't afford those things. So if Apple, and I'm not saying Apple's going to go down to the route of the ultra cheap burner Nokias that you can get for literally like $20 or so, but if they can drop that price point down significantly, they can expand their market just instantly.
Ryan, do you think that this creates any kind of complexity when it comes to the formatting for app developers? So you've got now it'd be yet another format that we have to start paying attention to.
I don't think so. I think that kind of goes back to, what do we mean by a smaller iPhone? I mean, I think it's possible to remove some components, to reduce the component size of a lot of what goes into an iPhone. But I think generally, I mean, and this is just me, estimating based on my experience. I don't think that Apple is going to reduce the screen size significantly. I think that would actually really affect some of the basic usability principles of the iPhone. They've been actually very clear and very specific about how people need to build applications in terms of pixel ratio to the screen size that they've had for the last few years. So if they do reduce it, I don't think it's going to be by much, and I think it makes a lot of sense for them to continue using the 320 by 480 pixel screen format from the old school iPhones. And they can certainly get those for cheap.
Do you think that they maybe just increase the density of pixels and keep it the same resolution?
That's what I would think, is that it's getting cheap enough.
I don't think so. I really don't, because if you increase that density of pixels and then you make the screen smaller, it makes it harder to use overall. You have smaller targets on screen, which is why they kept the screen size the same when they increased the resolution on the iPhone 4. So, I mean, like I said, I think that maybe they'll reduce the screen size a little bit, but screen size is not the only component that they can save money on, and that component, that size screen at 320 by 480, it just gets cheaper every year. And you look at how they eventually brought the iPhone 3G and 3GS down to $99. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe one of their strategies is they keep the 3GS around after they introduce the iPhone 5 and make the 3GS the quote unquote free model, which is
I have to admit that I'm surprised at given how much these phone manufacturers are making. I feel like I'm a little surprised that they're not making the iPhone 4 free. I mean, they're printing money with these from the subscription service. They just seem like it seems like just giving people a little bit more, a little more edge there to jump on. It wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Part of it is probably just, do they need to yet? Do they need to do it, or are they just getting enough uptake? And I think once there are multiple carriers out there, then there's a little more reason to it. And at some point, now with the Android being such pressure on them, I think they're going to have to adapt a little bit more.
So speaking of multiple outlets, Verizon, of course, now as of this week, starting on the 10th, they made it available to the to everyone. You can get your iPhone 4. Not a lot of lines. Didn't see a lot of eye lines outside of Apple. Ryan, what do you think what contributed to the lack of crazy excitement?
I don't know. I'm a little puzzled, but at the same time, I'm also not that terribly surprised. What they put out on pre-order online, though, sold out, right? I mean, you weren't able to get any
know how
pre-orders.
much.
We don't know. You never know
how
what
many
sold out
units that
means.
was.
Yeah,
we don't know how many units that was, but it's entirely possible that all the people who really wanted to get it just bought it online, thinking that they didn't want to have to wait all day in line. And then, what volume I think they expected to kind of get in store was really a lot of people, kind of like myself. I have it on AT&T. I'm not ready to switch to Verizon, not because I don't like Verizon. I would do it in a heartbeat. I have terrible service on AT&T. It's like everybody. It's just that I'm not, I got the iPhone 4 last summer, and I'm under contract for a little while, and I'm not ready for that ETF yet.
Yeah, you've got the Apple faithful, if you want to call them that, who have sort of already adopted it. There's people like me and like you, Ryan, and I think like everybody I know who would love to get out from underneath AT&T. But there's a lot of uncertainty in the water right now. There's a new model coming. The 5 will be out at some point here. People are under contract. So I'm not at all surprised that you can't get enough traction to get lines at the stores with that much uncertainty right now.
Maybe, but weren't the lines that really happen every year not just Apple fans? I mean, it's it's mainstream consumers who are interested in the iPhone, and I think most mainstream consumers, we watch this stuff very closely. We all know that there's a new iPhone every summer, but most mainstream consumers don't. Most have no idea that there is a new iPhone that comes every June or July.
Well, but isn't one of the things though that one of the insanity of it is that the people who are forming all those lines are oftentimes the same people that formed them last year. The thing is that what it's not the issue is it's not newbies that are coming to get them. It's like and I say this as someone who may or may not stand in those lines, to get the iPhone that I can walk in later and just pick up. But the thing is that we are the ones that are, there's this faithful that is constantly coming in and buying those new ones. And that's why you didn't get a line. You may still get a lot of orders, but you're not going to get that big line because we have our iPhones. And I think, and we know that they're going to be coming out with something in the summer, or we're fairly certain that they're going to come out with something in the summer, and it'll be really cool. And
how big of an issue is it to you guys for the fact that you can't surf the web while you're on a phone call?
It's a big issue for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I use that all the time. And usually what I'm doing is it's Google Maps.
That's exactly what I was thinking. As I was driving up to Petaluma, which for people that don't know is a little ways away out of San Francisco, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm at, and I'm looking at the map, and it was very convenient. And then I'm thinking, boy, if I couldn't do this because I was on a phone call at the same time, that would be a big inconvenience.
But my wife, though, is a perfect example of someone who is going to get the Verizon. Her subscription's up. We've talked about it before. And she does, she finally bought an app for her iPhone. I was so proud of her. She bought Yelp. she was like, that's the only one she's ever gotten. No, Yelp is the only one the only app she's ever put on her iPhone, other than the ones that come with it, is, and she loves her iPhone, but the only one that she's ever put on is Yelp. And that was because she went to the Yelp website and she and it said, there's an iPhone app there's an app for this, and then she installed it. She goes, this is great. It's an application on your iPhone. I was like, yes, honey. It's an application for your iPhone. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. Now, one of the things that it looks like people started tearing down, iFixit tore down the iPhone, and it looks like the infamous Qualcomm chip, is actually embedded into this Verizon phone. Ryan, why do you think that Apple didn't activate it completely?
Well, to clarify what you're saying for people who might not know 100%, how this stuff works. So there's basically a quote unquote world phone or dual mode chip in the Verizon iPhone that would allow it to operate on CDMA, which is Verizon's network standard, or GSM HSPA, which is AT&T and most of the world. The reason why it wasn't activated, the reason why they just have it operating on CDMA, I don't think has anything to do with the components themselves. If you were to just ask me to come up with a reason, I would say with 95% certainty it's antenna design. Dual mode devices that can operate on CDMA and GSM based networks are incredibly difficult to build, and the antenna design required to do that, in addition to the other antennas like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and supposedly the next version is going to have NFC, and it's just really, really not easy to do that. And the frequencies that CDMA operates on are different, and the way that CDMA operates is completely different from GSM.
Do we think that we're going to see that activate? It looks like they went ahead and engineered it into the phone, so that now you have it built into the phone. You only have to redesign certain pieces. Ron, do you think that we're going to see this in the next iPhone?
The first thing I thought of when I saw that was not related to the next iPhone, but to that typical model that Apple does of offering last year's model as the lower cost alternative. And so I was thinking, they went ahead and did the engineering effort to make the iPhone 4 this new Verizon version with the world band stuff, so that eventually that can continue to be their lower cost option when the 5 comes out. So it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't sort of plan all that out to have this be kind of their lower cost entry.
Yeah, so it'll be, I just feel like Apple has to get back to a single phone. I mean, the thing is that you can't keep on making different phones for everybody. So I think that, figuring out.
I don't know about that. I think that they can in a certain way. So let's forget the rest of the phone. Let's say, moving forward, they kind of unify the internals of the device, the screen, the memory, the main board, the battery, stuff like that. They can kind of unify the internals around a chipset that will handle both GSM and CDMA, and then tune the antennas for each device for the appropriate network. So the inside of the device doesn't really change, and that makes manufacturing the devices. I mean, it basically is one device on the inside. The only thing that really changes is the antennas, because antenna design is so completely non-trivial, and I really can't stress that enough. I think people really take for granted how difficult antenna design is.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if they have, if the real differences moving forward between the Verizon iPhone and the GSM iPhone is just the way that they build the antenna, and then eventually we will unify again in the future around LTE, but that's still, I think, a couple of years out. Then in the meantime, they can basically keep the internals the same.
So you don't think we're going to see LTE this summer?
I really don't think Apple's going to adopt it this summer. No, I think it's still way too early. Apple, in my opinion, is not going to be very, very early on the bandwagon. They're going to wait for a rollout that is relatively complete in the U.S. before they go there.
Right. I'm sorry. Ron, do you think that we'll see LTE?
No, I agree with Ryan. It's just Apple's conservative that way, and how hammered do they get when they have issues like the antenna gate issue? They've got to make sure that it's bulletproof and the network is strong and everything. So I don't think so. I mean, I am curious, what is the big thing that'll be with the iPhone 5? I think it's probably some kind of near field communication chip or something that gives you that. I think that's a whole new world that Apple can open up.
Yeah, I think opening up to. I think that being able to use it on Sprint and T-Mobile. I have to say, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this, but. It's their own fault if they showed it to me. But somebody may or may not have shown me an LTE enabled Android phone, and it was the most impressive phone I've ever seen in the most impressive stream I've ever seen in my entire life. It was as if it was playing off the hard drive. I mean, It is as clear as a bell, and it was streaming. Yep. And it was just. Oh boy! That's all you want. I was like, I felt like I was looking at a window into a new world. It was just and I feel like Apple needs to be able to,
They do, but it's not their
way. It's not the Apple way.
They don't need to is the problem. Somebody else will do it first, and there'll be pressure, but they can sit back and wait and get it right. And that's what they do.
Now, AT&T has been starting to do what they can to hang on to people. We're having reports. I don't know if you guys have gotten any of these reports of people getting more minutes, getting larger data plans for free. This is being kind of offered to them. Ryan, have you gotten any extra data?
Well, I still have the old school iPhone data plan that's unlimited. Yes. I managed not to give that up, and I'm gonna hang on to it as long as I can until I switch to Verizon, I guess.
Yeah, no, I have to admit that was I have been fanatical about making sure I keep my data plan. I'm afraid of changing anything. I'm afraid of adding or taking away anything. It's like my magic little connection.
And especially if you are one of those people like me that jailbreaks and then uses hotspot tethering or something. That's a handy thing to have.
Definitely comes in handy.
Yeah.
But they gave away the 1,000 minutes too as a little bonus to AT&T subscribers. But I never got the message. I
didn't get the message either. Someone left me out of that memo.
I got the message this morning.
You can still reply to if you know the code and you type in yes and you reply to the code. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but they'll still give you the minutes, but you have to know it, right?
What is it?
I'll tell you.
Here we go.
I did it this morning as I was reading the article. Yeah, you just send a text to 11113020, and the body of the text is just yes. That's all you have to do. And I mean, immediately I got back a little message from AT&T saying, thank you. Your rollover minutes will be added to your account within 4 weeks, subject to verifying your account eligibility. Limit 1 credit per account. So, it's extra minutes.
So this is the bonus for MacBreak
I'm pretty sure there's
listeners?
an asterisk in there, though, that if you look up the asterisk online, it says that we've just extended your service plan by 3 years.
Yeah, that's maybe I shouldn't have been so quick to do this, you're saying?
Right.
I did it for the audience. And the audience owes me if I just signed up for another
you might be in trouble. So, but we'll tell you the code is, once again, 11113020. And you say yes?
That's the number you text to.
So,
and then the body of the message is just yes. And it immediately came back and said you got minutes. Now, I personally tend not to overflow my rollover minutes anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me, but I was curious.
I have a hard time using any minutes on this network.
That's true.
I was trying really hard this morning. I was on a couple of phone calls, and it was I was hanging on to it the wrong way. I was in the wrong room. And now it's like in my house, now that I kind of rebuilt my Wi-Fi connection and everything. In my house now I have this great Skype coverage. That's what I call it now. It's not AT&T coverage, it's Skype coverage, and my Skype coverage is excellent.
I dropped a call driving over the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm like, you would think it's fairly open. There's a lot of people that use it, but anyway.
When in doubt, I have to admit I'm now getting into the habit of using Skype over my my MiFi, which is something very wrong about that. But so anyway, but it works great. Just in case you're wondering. So we've got rumors, of course, of the iPad 2 and possibly 3 coming up. But before that, let's jump to thank one of our sponsors here. We want to thank Squarespace, and of course, I was really happy this week because I'm sitting in, and I wanted to make sure that that we have advertisers that we actually use, and Squarespace, of course, is another one. dvgarage.com on Squarespace, pixelcore.com on Squarespace, bordersack.com, which is my my blog, is on Squarespace. So this is something that we build a lot of stuff on, and some of them are more complex than others. Some of them, the Border Sack uses absolutely no extra code. It's just me fiddling around. In fact, it was me fiddling around for about 4 or 5 hours, and that was it. DV Garage has got e-commerce built in. PixelCore's got a lot of special stuff built into it. So the key here with Squarespace is that it's just a really easy to use UI. I mean, it's WYSIWYG. You just kind of go, okay, I want to drag stuff over. I want to make this stuff work. And it's not something you have to kind of, you don't have to know any coding. You don't have to know any of that stuff. You just got to know what you want. There are literally thousands of templates for you to choose from, so you can go up there. You don't have to build anything from scratch. You can start with something that I'm sorry, hundreds of design templates, not thousands of design templates, but more than you need. You need one, and you can then take them and customize them. And it's all inclusive. You have a blog module, you have forums, form builders, Flickr photo displays, Twitter widgets, Google Maps, and you'll see a lot of those widgets. Again, on my site, I started just adding widgets. I was like, oh, I want an Amazon widget, and I want to, I have, recommendations. I have all that other stuff, and I just kind of threw it in, just a drag and drop, put it where you want it, boom, it's done. And it's just really, really easy. Of course, you can have permission access. You have cloud. One of the big things is I don't worry about whether I'm slamming. Right now there's a bunch of people watching MacBreak that are probably going to some of these sites that I just mentioned, and I'm not worried about getting slammed because it's on the cloud. It's not one server. It's not something that I'm coloing. It is something that is going to be able to handle whatever kind of pressure you get put on. And I've put 4 gig files on my Squarespace. I emailed them. I said, so I'm going to put some big Ask a Ninja files on one of our on our PixelCore site. Is that okay? And they're like, well, how big is it? And I was like, 4 gig. Don't even. They were like, don't even worry about it. So they can handle the flow, and that's something that's really important if you start to break out. But this is anybody who asks me, how do I get started? I just want to put up a web page. I just want it to work. The idea of if you're getting started with your company, with your services, with your blog, to me this is just really the easiest way to do it. You don't have to worry about how to install it onto a server or how to do any HTML coding. If you know HTML or CSS, you can do all of that. You can add all of those things that you want to. But especially even when we're developing sites for other people, a lot of times we've been using Squarespace because I don't want to have to manage it later. I just want to help do it. And then let them run it from there. So definitely check it out. You can get a 14-day free trial if you go to squarespace.com/MacBreak. And you can sign up and get a free account. You don't need a credit card. You can just try to build it. So you don't have to believe me. Just go up there, go up to squarespace.com/MacBreak, check it out, sign up, put your little information in, and then try to build your own website. And I think you're going to find it's the easiest way to build your own website quickly and easily, and it looks great. So check it out, squarespace.com/MacBreak. Okay, now we have the iPad 2 is theoretically in production. Ron, what do you think?
I have heard similar rumors. I think it's getting close. I definitely wouldn't buy a existing generation iPad right now if you're able to wait just a little bit longer. It only makes sense. I mean, we're not surprised about it. I think the interesting thing about this rumor was not so much that there's the iPad 2 imminent, but that there's already talk about the iPad 3 and not a year away.
Ryan, do you think that we have both an iPad 2 and an iPad 3 coming out this year?
Well, iPad 2 seems like a slam dunk, and that it would be in production right now. The timing on that makes a lot of sense in terms of the lead time that you need to produce devices like this, especially in large quantities. Definitely larger quantities than were initially expected this time last year. The third iPad, I'm not 100% on what that really means. I mean, is that Apple kind of going into even the higher end of the tablet space and pushing the hardware to create some stuff on there like a Retina display and I mean the technical requirements. I think the big thing that people are talking about with a next generation iPad is a Retina display, and I think the hardware requirements on that are going to be pretty significant.
Well,
so
we're not going to get a true Retina display. I mean, that'd be like taking a 30-inch.
Yeah, I wrote about this a while before other people started writing about what a Retina display on the iPad would mean, and I think that they would probably do the same thing that they did on the iPhone, which is to double the resolution in each direction, so essentially quadrupling the resolution. And yeah, that would basically create a 10-inch wide display or a 10-inch diagonal display that has the resolution of a 20 to 24-inch monitor. I mean, it's not. Talk about things that are non-trivial. That is a non-trivial task. So I don't know. I'm maybe a little bit skeptical that it's going to be this year. But I guess if they were going to do a higher end iPad 3, then that might be where they take it.
But the rumors that I've seen at least is the reasoning behind it is sort of listed as they want to have something that switches the product cycle around so it's closer to Christmas, so that there's an excitement building up closer to the holidays kind of thing. And the rumors I've seen have discussed potentially it's more like an iPad 2.5, so something to differentiate it and have a new model that's toward the end of the year, and then they could have their nice release schedules a little bit spread out, so you have that the phone is announced early in the year and the iPad comes later in the year, and I could see that, but I don't see a completely new equivalent iPad that comes out and replaces the one that's going to come out in the next couple months. That just doesn't make sense to me.
What do we think?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was going to say, I thought the iPad, quote unquote 2, the one that was supposed to be coming out in the next couple of months, is really kind of be the 1.5. So I mean, it seems like we're kind of, I don't know. I think we might be missing a beat here, and we're not going to know until Apple introduces it. But I think what we're kind of been expecting in the next iteration of the iPad is more memory, faster processor, maybe a little bit thinner and lighter, but not a a revolutionary new design for it.
Probably cameras.
Yeah,
we would assume.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think cameras are kind of so much of a given. I don't even think to mention them at this point. But.
Yeah, 128 gig storage.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think the
Cloud
component
storage.
costs on that are still really, really expensive. I mean, they haven't done 128 gig on the iPod Touch.
Do we think we'll see a smaller one?
That's my question. I mean, that's the real question to me: is do they go smaller? In spite of, these days, Steve tends to deny things and then they show up. So, in spite of the fact that he's said nobody wants a smaller form factor for a tablet, you really got to wonder if that's almost a signal saying they're thinking about doing a smaller form factor for a tablet. I think it's usable, and I think it'd be usable. I could see a smaller one.
So we'll see how that turns out. Now, also in the news, Sony is they're frustrated.
Poor Sony.
I'm poor Sony. I mean, they're trying so hard, and but they're a little frustrated here. They're setting up their own. This is according to Apple Insider. Of course, they're building up their own services, but one of the things that they are, starting to. This is according to, I believe it's Michael Efron. Is that right? From Sony, he said, publishers are being held ransom by Apple. They're looking for other delivery systems, and we are waiting to see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years. Is there anything to find out there, Ryan, in the next 3 to 5 years for Sony?
I don't know. I thought this whole quote was a little dubious. I mean, I'm not 100% sure of what Sony's entertainment structure is in Australia, and I guess Oceania.
So it's not really coming from the mothership, is what you're saying. So we don't really know.
Yeah, well, it's coming from the chief executive of Sony Computer Entertainment, which you can replace the word Sony Computer Entertainment with PlayStation. That's what PlayStation is, Sony Computer Entertainment.
Right.
So I don't really know how much weight the PlayStation group has with the music group. And I think it's kind of, it's maybe a little bit sour grapes. I mean,
well, they're bristling over the whole e-reader thing, right? So they, Sony, doesn't want to give Apple 30% for the e-reader, and they're upset that they didn't get their app, inserted.
It's just, I find it really amusing because it's like, okay, well, yes, in some alternate reality where we're incredibly successful in the music business by selling it on our own, which we've tried 2 to 3 times in the past, each time failing miserably. If we could somehow make it work, then yes, we won't need to go with iTunes. Well, of course, but that's not the reality. The reality is Sony's tried this and failed numerous times, and that's just the way it is. Now Apple sells all the music.
Right. Ron, do you think there's any?
I think the real issue here, the real question is anybody at some point going to be able to challenge iTunes, the actual app that runs on the phones and on the computers and stuff?
Is the app really the secret to the sauce? Is that the secret sauce?
Will Apple allow something like that to show up on an iPhone? I think that's really, as much as they do these things that sort of make them look open and allow people to sell in-app, sell out of app as long as they sell in-app. The bottom line is they still have that lockdown control over the music player itself on the handsets. And that's really the thing that you got to wonder. Is somebody going to say we need to make a competitor to that? And it can't be a Sony. It can't be somebody that owns the content as well, because I don't think people will trust it. It's almost got to be an Amazon or something. But they certainly haven't had much luck doing it with their MP3 store. They really have to live in Apple's world.
Well, and here's the question I have: is the real power in the fact that, and this is a question for you, Ryan, is it really a function of the fact that the iTunes and the App Store are very well produced, internet-enabled applications that are not on the web, and that do you think a web app or a web service can compete with a completely embedded internet-enabled application that's really designed for exactly what it does?
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because I was actually going to say almost the exact same thing. I mean, I think that's kind of what we're already seeing right now. I mean, where there is innovation in the music space, and this goes right back to what we started, we started talking about earlier on in the program, where there is innovation in the music space right now, it's not coming from, buy an album of MP3s. It's coming from streaming services, things like RDO and Spotify. And those are in the App Store, and you can sync music through Rhapsody and RDO. And I don't remember if Spotify has an iPhone app, because they're Europe right now, so it's a little tricky. But there are these services where you can stream and you can sync and you pay the subscription, and it's a very viable alternative to iTunes, and it's on the iPhone now, and anyone can go use it. I think the question is, does anyone really care at this point? I mean, is music the kind of thing that people really are going to be paying for in the future? I think most people probably don't want to pay for music.
Well, one of the things that I think is interesting, and we've talked about this on some of the other shows, This Week in Media and so on and so forth, is the fact that part of the problem I think the industry really gets into is this whole process of when we have all this content available to us, we don't press as much for the new stuff. Because we have open access to Netflix, we have open access to we have our entire library collection that's with us all the time, and I find that I'm not looking for new stuff as often, because I have something to listen to and something new to listen to out of the thousands of songs.
No, I don't know if I agree. I think that it's probably true for some people, but I think there's a lot of people that just want for them,
the next big thing.
Well, it's just they want something new. They don't want to listen to they have their old favorites, but really having the latest hot song and having access to it, it's a constant thing. I mean, they just want the latest and the newest, and maybe that is an argument for a subscription model having some real traction there, is if it's something that is just get the latest top 10 songs or something that you're hearing on the radio or something. Now,
speaking of subscription, Apple, there's a rumor floating around, because according to CNET, there's a rumor that Apple's thinking about making MobileMe free. Digital shelves where you can store electronic books, songs, and movies. Ryan, does this dog hunt?
Absolutely. I think they got to do it sooner or later. I mean, all of these services already exist on the web, have for years. They're all free. I think the fact that Apple tried to charge for them was almost suicide for the products. They got to do it. And the sooner they do it, the better. And I think the better a job they do on the web and with cloud services, the better they're going to do ultimately, because the attitude that these devices are not deeply integrated with all manner of cloud services just does not fly anymore. We got to get there.
Yeah, there's this whole in between. I know with like iWork is a good example of apps that I use very, very heavily. I mean, Numbers and Keynote and Pages. And my one frustration though is that when we have this crazy interaction where when we want to develop an app, develop a document, it all goes up to Google. And so on Google Docs, we build it all out, and then when we get to a certain point where it's almost done, it gets exported to Pages, and then I clean it up and make it actually look nice. It's like because we don't do any formatting in Google because Google Docs is horrible for that. So and then in the same way, like Excel sheets, Google building spreadsheets in Google Docs is insanely frustrating. Where you go into Numbers and you build the whole thing, and then we export it out as an XLS. Then we bring it into, then we email it to my Gmail account, and then it goes into Google, and then people update it there. It seems like Apple just needs to fix this whole back end so that we can use the apps that we want to use, but have them integrated in the cloud. But is that going to open up? Here's a question for you, Ron. Is that going to open up a can of worms for Apple as far as there's good reasons why it's difficult on the web?
No, I don't think it opens up a can of worms. MobileMe has been an embarrassment for Apple really since the beginning. It was an embarrassment when I worked there, and I was in many meetings trying to talk about what it could change into, but there was never really any clear vision for what it was supposed to be, and not just what it's supposed to be design-wise, but how it's supposed to work. Every time I've dealt with it, still is somewhat unreliable. So I think if you look at things like Dropbox and how seamless they are, that's what MobileMe needs to turn into. And I do think making it free is part of it. And then it opens up all the stuff you're talking about with sharing of documents, but it also opens up, putting your own music in the cloud and things like that, which is part of what some of the rumors we're hearing too, is this idea that maybe you'll be able to put all of your music online somewhere and have access to that. And again, that's that sort of continuum of owning versus renting versus subscriptions. And then there's also just put everything up on the cloud and have it accessible.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think, Ron pretty much said everything that needs to be said about it. I mean, I think overall, besides the fact that MobileMe's had problems, and besides the fact that we know where this stuff needs to go, I think the real troubling thing is just that Apple is not really been successful in the long term on the internet and on the web. I mean, they've had some successes, but they're a company that excels at platforms, and they're a company that excels at hardware, and the web and the internet has kind of eluded them. So they really need to figure this thing out. If you look at Google, they're the other way. They're a company that understands the web better than anybody. They've been able to leverage that fact and kind of bring that into the platform side. But, Android is not at the level of iOS, and it's still catching up. And
well, they don't understand user interface. I mean, that's the problem with Google is they understand the whole, they don't understand the process of the web. They just don't understand how people want to actually interact with the medium, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think that they understand user interface in some ways better. I mean, look at the paradigm change that they incited with Gmail. Gmail taught people a completely different way to interact with email, both in terms of user interface and in terms of kind of how casual it is to just use email almost as like I am. So they get some of this stuff. I wouldn't give them such a hard time on the UI stuff. I mean, they're not at the level of Apple, but their medium is also different. They're a web centric company. So anyway, I guess, to bring it back to what Apple's doing, I think that they really need to figure out their internet strategy, because that's a place that they have to do really well at, and they just have not done as well as they could.
Very good, very good. Now we have picks coming up here in just a second, so get that ready. But before that, we want to, of course, thank Audible.com, our sponsor. So Audible.com, of course, is the best way to read a book, as far as I'm concerned. You have. Basically, Audible has over 75,000 titles, downloadable, all types of information, literature, fiction, nonfiction, periodicals. It is if anything you want to listen to, you're going to find some stuff there. And I'm totally addicted. That's all I have to say. Audible.com. You can go to audible.com/MacBreak if you want to get a free book today. So if you haven't done this already, you're crazy. Like, how can you be listening to the show and not download your free book? So definitely check it out. Audible.com/MacBreak. And if you need some coaxing as to what you should possibly download, Ron, I put Ron on the spot. Ron has a pick for you.
I do. I just finished sort of powering through all three of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, which I know they've been out for a while. But
it is so. The funny thing is that I got into it. I got into the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo because my dad was listening to it on Audible. Yeah. So my dad is listening. He's been listening to books on tape for 20 years, and then when I bought him an iPod Nano or whatever a year ago, he moved to Audible. And so he's listening to me. He's like, oh, you have to do it. And I watch the movies. Yeah, well, and it's almost a shame that you saw the movies first, because the books they're just so much richer than the movies. And the movies were okay, but the book is just, there's this, the thing that's so compelling about this series is he builds up these characters that you just hate so intensely. So when the anticipation of knowing they're going to eventually get it in the end is extraordinarily satisfying. So. That's kind of true through all three of the books. So I totally recommend it. I got a quick Audible question for you. Yeah.
Do you listen at normal speed or double speed?
I listen to it it depends on the subject matter. So that's for me, that's the big thing, is whether it's going to be, and it depends on the speaker. So sometimes the speakers if they talk like me, I will tend to listen to it at 1x, because I'm from Pittsburgh and we tend to squish everything together. But if there's a lot of them that have been too slow, and I'll put it, what I really want, and I don't think I can do it on Audible. I know on QuickTime I can go 1.5, which is to me the perfect medium. When I'm listening to it on, it's generally 2x. Yeah, so if I feel like someone's talking too slow, but when I'm listening to fiction, I kind of want to have time to absorb it. When I'm just trying to pull in information, then I want to listen to it double.
It probably does depend on the book. I mean, the Dragon Tattoo books are I'd call them a page turner if there were pages to turn in Audible books, but you really want. I mean, they just keep going and going, and I pretty much started to listen to everything at double speed, and your brain quickly adjusts. And there'll be times where
what's funny is you go back and you're like, get on with it.
Yeah. I'm so used to listening to all my podcasts at double speed. Whenever I caught when I catch the live version occasionally, and like the theme music plays for this show, I'm like, wow, this is really slow. What's going on here? So I'm ready for 3x. Somebody give me a player that does 3 times. I want to try it.
Oh, I can't. I've tried. 2x is like is my outer limit, but also I'm trying to do something else usually with it. So that's usually my other.
See, for me it's usually I'm doing a bike ride or something like that, and it's fine. Just give me information flow.
Right, totally. So now you can pick this, or you can pick anything else that you want. Go check it out. Go to audible.com/MacBreak, and you can sign up. You can get your free book. You can download it, see if it works for you. It's just a great way to read books. I mean, I'm an adamant or very proud multitasker. I do not believe in unitasking, especially when it comes to acquiring information. I like to do that in with one side of my brain while my fingers do something else. And so it's just awesome. And Audible is the key to the operation. So once again, audible.com/MacBreak, and we're going to start running our picks around the horn, and we're going to start with Ron. Ron, do you have a pick for us?
I do have a pick. I'm not positive that it hasn't been picked on the show before. I know I've picked it on This Week in Photography, but it's something I quite love. It's called Total Finder. It's sort of a modification to the existing Finder, and it really does, I guess, 3 things that it does. A lot of little stuff, but it does 3 things that I love. And it's very lightweight. It feels like the Finder generally. There's another package out there called Pathfinder, which I like a lot, but it really is just kind of heavy, and it really encompasses everything. Where Total Finder is just it really just extends your existing Finder. And there's three things that I really like. Number one, it gives you cut and paste, true cut and paste, so I can actually click on a file, and actually cut it as opposed to copying it and paste it somewhere else for moving. It has tabbed browsing, just like you have in Safari or Chrome, where you can have multiple different directories just up in tabs and go between them. But the thing I really love about it is then you can kind of double-click if you've got two tabs open, and it makes this dual-pane interface into the Finder, where you can easily drag and drop from the left half of the screen onto the right half of the screen, or of the Finder window. And anytime you're doing all this file manipulation and stuff, it just makes life so much faster. It's $15, I think, although he says it'll give you free licenses if you come up with a lot of really good feedback or something for him. Totalfinder.binaryage.com is the URL, and absolutely no problem spending $15 or something like this. I use it every day, often, and it's just one of those experiences where you're like, I just like this.
Ron, actually, I have a question about Total Finder. I used to use it. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I had some problems with it because it's a Symbol plugin, and Symbol is like a UI extension framework for OS X. And it was giving me all kinds of crazy problems, and
Really?
and that's why I stopped using. But like I said, it's been a long time. I mean, has it gotten a lot better since then? Symbol stuff is like a little sketchy.
It's generally felt extremely bulletproof to me. The only time I've ever seen anything weird is like when you're first logging in and it sort of brings up the windows that you may have had previously open, and then they're separate, and then they kind of merge, and it takes a second. But other than that, I've had no problems. It doesn't crash. It's been rock solid for me.
I might have to go back and give it another shot.
You should check it out. I just use it constantly, and it's nothing huge, but it's just such a lightweight, easy extension to what Finder does for you.
Okay, and Ryan, what is your pick for the week?
My pick that I've been using a lot lately is an app launcher and general utility called Alfred, which is, if you're familiar with Quicksilver, which I assume most people are, it's a lot like Quicksilver, except I found it's been a lot faster. It's got some really neat features that Quicksilver doesn't have, and it's just ridiculously easy to use.
Fantastic. So I guess my final pick. I got two picks. I couldn't make a choice. So one of my picks is handstand. So this is the handstand here, and here's what it's good for. And I somehow showed up without my iPad, so it's a stand for an iPad. Do you have your iPad with you? So you put it in here like this. I opened up my bag and I was like,
for those of you listening at home as opposed to watching.
For those of you listening, I have a stand for my iPad. Here's what really works about this. So the handstand has a little Velcro thing on the back, and it's got this little thing that your hands can kind of grab onto. And but it's got a nice rotating ability. Now we use this a lot when we're doing slates. So we use this slate tool for our when we're doing shoots. And we use the Slate app on the iPad, and so this is what we don't want to do is use both hands or whatever. So now we can just sit there and just go like this. But if we want to turn it, we can go like this, and it just you simply just turn it, and it'll stay at any angle you want. It also acts as a great little stand because it's got this little handle, so you can set it up and it's going to give you a little angle. You can rotate it around and have it, sit up at just that little angle that you want oftentimes. And it's turned out to be just a great little holder. I'm pretty picky. I don't get into a lot of holders, and I don't use this one all the time. I mostly use it when we're doing production. And but having something that I can just grab onto and stick it out there and hang on to it, or if you want to write on it in a meeting and have it in one hand or the other, this works really well. I've been using it also with Penultimate. So I have this on one hand, and I have Penultimate that I can write notes while I'm standing there in front of the client, at an event, and write stuff down and make it all work. So anyway, that is a handstand. The other thing that I wanted to recommend is, and this is mostly because of what's happening right now in the Middle East, is so it's almost impossible to really, you're hearing a lot about this this crazy network called Al Jazeera, which we bombed when we went into Iraq. But there is an Al Jazeera English, and this is what it looks like on my iPhone. And I will argue that Al Jazeera English is probably the best global news in the world when it comes to video global news that you have access to, being able to watch a feed. They were put together. Al Jazeera English was put together by the BBC. They were in conjunction with the BBC, so it really feels like the BBC in a lot of ways. But it is not Al Jazeera Arabic, which I think is kind of Al Jazeera Arabic, in my opinion, is kind of like Fox News for the Arab world. I mean, it's very it tends to be a little bit more one-sided. Al Jazeera English tends to be very open, but you can't find it anywhere in the United States. These cable operators cable operators are. I don't know what's wrong with them. Anyway, they're idiots. So they won't put this on, so the only way to get it is actually with the iPhone or iPad app or other streaming. You can go to their website and check it out. But the iPad app and the iPhone app are awesome, and I use this all the time. And it's just a really, really great app. And if you want to watch world news, it's great. A lot of people are talking about Facebook and Twitter, and that's cute about what happened in Egypt. But Al Jazeera Arabic and Al Jazeera English are the reason that this is happening all over the Arab world. Yeah, it is not about. It really is. This is the mover. And so if you want to be part of what's going on right now, you got to be watching this.
It's definitely a big component of what's going on. We were talking earlier about, this is kind of the CNN moment. I mean, I think everybody that was around back then remembers sort of CNN came into the fore during the Gulf War, and it was suddenly, that these are the guys that are providing the real coverage of it. And Al Jazeera was sort of, this is their moment for what's going on right now in the Middle East, and really good coverage. And the interesting thing is it's not, like you said, it's not on cable. So it's effectively these cable companies are pushing people onto the web by not having the kind of content that people want to see.
Yeah, and this is the only way to see the only place you're going to get real coverage, in my opinion, other than just stand-ups, is from Al Jazeera English. And so it is. I just wanted to only because of what happened last week and what looks like it's going to continue to happen for the next couple weeks or months. If you really want to see this stuff unfold, this is an application that you have to have. So anyway, that's it. Ron, where can people find you?
Best place is on Twitter, I guess. I signed up for Twitter the first time I came on MacBreak, way back there, and you were like, you got to get on Twitter, and now's the time to do it. So it's just at Ron Brinkmann, RonBrinkmann. And I'm a good poster. I'm not a heavy poster, but it's high quality content.
I come in waves. Like I don't think I posted like once last week, and then I'll post like 6 in a row, and I don't know if
I promise never to post what I'm having for dinner. Unless it's really good.
Ryan, where can people find you?
I'm at gadget.com. That's gdgt.com. Using my list of gadgets at gadget.com/Ryan. And then I'm also at Twitter at Ryan.
Very, very good. And you can, of course, find me on the Twitters, Alex Lindsay, all one word. And anyway, this is the end of MacBreak. I think, is Leo coming back next week? Leo is back next Tuesday.
Andy and Leo, the OG crew.
The OG crew, yeah. So it'll be back to the regularly scheduled program starting next Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. And otherwise, get back to work. Break time is over.